Hi, Assalamualaikum and very good day everyone. Today we meet again on food safety part 2. Okay, on the earlier part we already covered on what is a food safety, what are the categories that fall under the food safety. So in this part we focus more on the GMP, GHP, in detail about the HACCP, and also the comparison of quality control methods. Okay, first and foremost, what is GHP and GMP? So GHP, good hygienic practice, all practices regarding the conditions and measures necessary to ensure the safety and stability of food at all stages of the food chain. Okay, whereas GMP, good manufacturing practice, combination of manufacturing and quality control procedure which aim to ensure the product are consistently manufactured. Okay, so in a simple word, GHP is related to the practice. Okay, means that the person who are dealing with. Okay, whereas for the GMP is related to the manufacturing and quality control procedure. So means that the SOP of the manufacturing, for example, as well as the step-by-step procedure of the production. Okay. So, the food operations may decide which practices are critical for the safety of a product to be included in the HACCP plan. So, in a simple word, GMP and GHP is depend on the food operations itself. So the food operation itself will know which one is the most suitable for them. Okay, so these are the integrated of food safety and quality. So basically, the groundwork is the GHP, because this dealing with the people who are doing it, and then the GMP dealing with the processing involved, and up to the HACCP, and at the end is the TQM. Okay, so basically whatever safety components in food, the basic requirement must fulfill either GMP and GHP or only the GHP. So it depends on the food operation itself. For example, if the food service such as McDonald's, KFC, so they need more on the GHP. Okay, while for the food manufacturing, for example, they need both GMP as well as the GHP. Okay, GMPs are guidelines for the production of safe food products. So the umbrella GMPs address the basic sanitary requirement for food processing, handling, as well as the storage. So whatever it is, if the company has the GMP procedure, then they must have the GHP. Okay, so the GMP regulations are generally principles identifying the problem areas of sanitation in the food industry. Okay, so the GMP is not only the food processing, but it must consider the handling procedure, the storage of the component, as well as the sanitation of the components. Means that everything from the beginning till end must make sure it is safe, clean, hygiene. Okay, so standard operating procedure SOP and sanitation standard operating procedures are required. Okay, the SSOP should address at least safety of water and ice, condition and cleanliness of the food contact surfaces, prevention of cross-contamination from unsanitary objects to food, maintenance of facilities for personal hygiene, protection of food and food contact surfaces from adulteration, proper labeling, storage and use of the toxic compounds, control of employee health conditions, as well as the exclusion of the pests. Okay, so the following figures show the good GMP as well as the GHP. So on the first figure, with the cursor, it shows the GHP, so as well as the GMP. So we can see that they are not mixed the sample from one to another, and they use different procedure, such as they use different knife, they use different cutter, they use different container. Okay, and for the person who are dealing it, they use the proper attire of PPE. Okay, and this one, they use a proper light, so make sure there is no dust or there is no insect. So this one, proper temperature, no insect. Okay, so when we already control the GMP and GHP, then we can proceed to the HACCP, hazard analysis and critical control points. So food operations may decide which practices are critical for the safety of a product, which can be included in the HACCP plan. So HACCP is a quality assurance system which widely used in the food industry to help prevent both food safety and product quality problems. So there are 7 principles: conduct hazard analysis, determine the critical control points, establish the critical limit, establish a system to monitor of the CCPs that already identified earlier, establish the corrective actions to be taken to control the CCP. So establish the procedure for verification to confirm that HACCP is working effective, and finally documentation. So basically, in order to apply the HACCP, they must have at least 12 steps. So the steps are, first of all, they must perform the HACCP team, and then describe the product that they want to apply for the HACCP, and then identify the use of that product. Okay, then construct a flow diagram how the product can produce or how the product is produced, and then on-site confirmation of the flow diagram, and followed by the 7 lists of the HACCP that has been described earlier. Okay, for the HACCP, first conduct a hazard analysis. So for example, if the production got 10 steps, then you have to identify the hazard on each 10 steps. Okay, so evaluate the probability of appearance of these hazards. Identify the necessary of preventive measures. Okay, then we go step by step. So for example, for the first step, is there any hazard? Okay, if do, then identify whether it is under CCPs or not, critical control point or not. If yes, then we have to go to the step 3, to the establish critical limit and so. If not, then that's it. Just identify the hazard. No need to proceed for the 3rd, 4th and till 7. Okay, if for example, if you identify that that steps got the hazard and the hazard is critical, then you have to proceed to the next, which is establish the critical limit. So which must be met to ensure that each CCP is under control. So for the established critical limit, you have to identify what are the limiting values for that particular hazard. What are the target levels and what are the tolerances for that hazards. Next, establish a system to monitor control of the CCPs. So after you establish the critical limit, then you have to establish a monitor system to affirm a real and effective control of the CCPs. Then do the corrective action. Okay, next is verification of the things that you have planned earlier. And finally, documentation. Okay, so how to identify that the hazard is critical? Okay, there are we call as a 3 decision. Okay, so first of all, for example, that is a hazard. Then you identify whether are preventive measure in place. So if yes, then the measure can reduce the hazard. If yes, then that is the CCP. If there is no preventive measures, then that is we call as a go to the is control necessary. So if yes, then modification must be made. Okay, if no, then that is not a CCP. Okay, then if the measure cannot reduce the hazard, then we have to think whether the hazard reach an acceptable level. So if they reach, then will a subsequent step can reduce or eliminate the hazard? If yes, then it is not a CCP. If no, then that is a CCP. So basically, the identification of CCP is really important to make sure that the product produced is safe. Okay. Okay, so these are the example of the record sheet of the HACCP plan. So in this record sheet, it consists of the step, hazard, critical limit, monitoring, correction, and the correction action. Okay, so let's have a look at the example. So for example, we focus on the mixing product, for example. Okay, first of all, for the mixing product, the step consists of 2, for example, which are raw material receiving and the mixing. Okay, so we go one by one. We go for the raw material receiving first. So from the raw material receiving, we identify that, okay, first of all, in order to identify the hazards, you have to go back to the first part, in which we have to categorize into 3 categories, which are under physical, biological, or chemical. Okay, or we can put all the 3 categories in the hazards, for example. Okay, for example, for the first one, under physical hazard, we can think that the foreign bodies can affect the raw material, so that is physical. Then for biological, any contamination, for example, if the raw material is contaminated, for example, then it could be from the biological. How about the chemical? If you think that your raw material is free from the chemical, then don't have to mention on the chemical. But if you raw material is some product from somewhere which processed by using the chemical processing, for example, then you have to put the hazard under chemical categories. Okay, so let's have a look on the physical hazard. So, is there any critical limit for the foreign bodies, for example? Okay, no foreign bodies, the critical limit. So, monitoring. So, foreign body detection. So, we have to monitor each time, and who will be doing it? The QA, quality assurance person. So the corrective action, so we have to return back to the delivery, or we can change the supplier. Okay, and how to verify it? So we have to review from the supplier and also from the record. Okay, so next is the biological hazard. So any contamination, so critical limit, we must get no contamination, so that our product will be safe. So monitor, how to monitor? Identify the contamination. So we have to identify each delivery, and the person who will be doing it is a QA. So in this case, the hazard of the raw materials is a critical. Why? Because we have to identify it. The next step cannot reduce the hazards. Okay, so for example, after receiving the raw material, we will go to the mixing part, right? So if the raw material contain the physical contamination, for example, foreign bodies, the mixing cannot eliminate the foreign bodies. Same goes to the contamination. Therefore, the raw material receiving is critical. Okay. So next is a mixing. Okay. So physical foreign bodies, and critical limit, no foreign bodies. So monitoring foreign bodies detection, each batch. So the quality control people will check it. So corrective action, either product will be retained or discard, and the verification review the record. Okay, for the mixing part, for example, let's say we the mixing part, because the mixing process is open, for example, therefore the physical contamination can be occurred. Therefore, we have to eliminate everything before the next step. Therefore, it is critical. Okay, so under mixing, biological contamination, so no contamination. So identify the contamination, each batch. So the person who is doing it is quality control people. So the corrective action, either the product is retained or discard, and the verification is the review the records. Okay, finally is recording. Record the documentation. Okay, so now we come to the end of this part. So we learn on the HACCP. We know that HACCP is very tedious. So many things to be done to be completed the process. Okay. By the way, what is the difference between HACCP and conventional method? Okay, first and foremost, from the lesson that we learned, we know that by using the HACCP, all finished product is a good product, and all finished product is a consistent product. Why? It is because by using the HACCP, it inspects the hazard at each step of the procedure, and it takes an appropriate steps at each point. Meanwhile, for the conventional method, the product might not be consistent. Why? It is because quality checking only done at the end of the finished product. Therefore, some finished product may be discarded. So, it will be a waste, right? So, I hope that you appreciate the HACCP plan, even though it's very difficult to be applied. Okay, so to recap of what you have learned throughout the first part and second part, so please do this assessment or the quiz, and all the best. Bye.